Hello, I'm Bill Colosimo. I'm a member of the District of Columbia chapter of the Barbershop Harmony Society, the Alexandria Harmonizers chapter of the Barbershop Harmony Society. I'm music director of the Alexandria Singers and a member of the board of the Mixed Barbershop Harmony Association. And I'm making this video for you today because Harmony College East, one of the Mid-Atlantic District's best events every year, unfortunately has been canceled this coming weekend. So the leadership of Harmony College East, our Dean Glenn Phillips and our Deputy Dean Cheryl Berlin have asked me to provide you with a summary of the course that I would have been providing during Harmony College East. I hope you'll find it enlightening and helpful. I won't take too much of your time today as we go through a small snippet of a course called Enlightened Leadership. Now, the Enlightened Leadership course that we give at Harmony College East lasts an entire morning or an entire afternoon. Well, this won't take that long. We're only going to spend about 7 minutes or so together to go through some of the fundamentals of enlightened leadership. Usually the course is entitled Enlightened Leadership from Fear to Faith. But today's snippet of that course is going to simply be called Enlightened Leadership During Challenging Times. I'm speaking to you from Fredericksburg, Virginia, where for the last 90 days we have been in our home and safely outside during an unprecedented pandemic. The coronavirus has caused the disease COVID-19, which has caused all of the North American continent, especially the east coast of the United States, the requirement that people be safe, stay inside, only go out when it's absolutely possible, and to be apart from each other a lot more than we usually are. Harmony College East is one of those opportunities for us to be together, learn to sing, spend social time in close contact with our friends, and that's just not possible this year. So during these challenging times, you as a music leader or a member of an organization who might like to be a leader is faced with different opportunities and challenges. A friend of mine once said there's no such thing as a problem, there are only opportunities for spiritual growth. Well, in this case, the problem, the coronavirus pandemic, has prompted a real need for substantive change in the way we as leaders operate. And that's a way of growth for us, a way of change for us that we never anticipated. Boy, oh boy, 2020 came. Who would have thought in January or even February that for the next 3 months our world would be turned upside down? So let's proceed to talk about some of the ways that leaders operate in history and even up to today, and how we as enlightened leaders can move forward during challenging times. Excuse me. In order to be able to understand the leader or the leadership styles, it's very important that we understand our followers. Right now, our followers who are usually ready to be with us in an ensemble rehearsal, ready to be with us in person in meetings, ready to be with us in person in performances, are not able to do that. They have a great deal of fear, a great deal of unknown, and a great deal of concern about their organization and what will happen to the organization in the future. It's our responsibility to respond to the followers during challenging times in different ways in order to be able to be effective leaders and to guide them from the base of fear in which they find themselves to a base of faith and opportunity and confidence. In the full course of enlightened leadership, we go through 3 specific styles of leader. We won't we won't spend a lot of time on 2 of these styles. We will spend a little bit more time on the third style, which is the style that's probably most effective during challenging times. The authoritative leadership style was a style of leadership that particularly took root during the Industrial Revolution. The authoritative leadership style is rooted in the models of Rockefeller and Carnegie and Mellon and even Henry Ford. As a Detroit boy myself, I understood Henry Ford's leadership style to be authoritative, but it was authoritative with a vision. Many authoritative leaders have visions that are fulfilled through um, a very top down orientation of how to lead. They give orders, they expect the followers to follow the orders, and the ultimate result is good for the followers in terms of reward for their work, even if it's not fair reward, and a product of which they can be proud. On the other hand, the authoritative leader, whose style is really rooted in telling rather than helping, the authoritative leader comes out of it usually with a high degree of profit personally, and also with a belief that that's the only way to do it. Some would say that in a political environment, an authoritative leadership would be termed almost a dictator. A dictator's motives are far more malevolent and perhaps even evil than an authoritative leader. This authoritative leader model, coming from the late 19th century and into almost three-quarters of the 20th century, was not based in evil or malevolence. It was based in what they really felt needed to be done to, quote, get the job done. Less emphasis on the needs of and the concerns of the followers, and more emphasis on self. Here's my vision. Here's what I know is going to work. Here's what you will do to get it done. And ultimately, I'm telling you that it will be good for all. Whether the followers feel that or not, whether the total stakeholders feel that or not, is not so important in the authoritative leadership style. Now, the consumer of whatever product is produced in the authoritative leadership style doesn't necessarily know that the authoritative leadership style was what was at the root of it. If you bought a Model T Ford, you didn't need to know that Henry Ford managed his group who manufactured the car using an authoritative leadership style. You just liked the Model T Ford, you were a happy camper. But the followers, the people who worked on the cars, they were the ones most directly impacted. Was the quality of their work compromised? Not necessarily, because they followed very strict manufacturing rules, as the steel industry did and as the banking industry did, but it was not necessarily um, a process that involved their input. It was just, here are the rules, here's what we do, here's how many cars you're going to make in a given period of time, here's what you're going to be rewarded for your work, period. And that style manifested itself in virtually every walk of life, at least in the United States, for a substantial period of time. In the 1970s, a new paradigm was developed. You might even say it was a biblical paradigm called servant leadership. Servant leadership was more rooted in the needs of the followers than in the needs of the leader, him or herself. The servant leadership model took the role of leadership and almost turned it upside down and was constantly interested in the needs of the followers. This is not a religious course, and I'm not espousing religious values in this. I'm simply saying that when in the New Testament of the Bible, the figure Jesus was very much a servant leader, washing his disciples' feet, asking what their needs were, working to fulfill the needs of those around him who needed healing or needed comfort. That was the model on which servant leadership was based, not necessarily out of religion, but out of an understanding that in order to make the most productive use of the followers' talents and to increase their level of satisfaction in producing whatever article or service they were there to provide, their needs would have to be first and foremost in the mind of the leader. So servant leadership caught on in the 1970s into the 80s and is the foundation of many, many business books that teach that servant leadership model. We in the music and arts community adopted that model as well. The textbooks in Masters of Business Administration courses in the late 19th and early 20th century were exclusively rooted in the authoritative model. The textbooks in the later 20th century began to morph into the servant leadership model, and we in arts organizations like barbershop choruses or dance organizations or orchestras began to look more closely at what the needs of the players and the singers and the dancers were in order to be able to provide not only beautiful music or beautiful art, but also satisfied followers and practitioners. That model, the servant leadership model, has served North America and arts organizations and the barbershop choruses as well quite successfully. To one degree or another, leaders have had to understand that the "you will do it this way" model isn't going to attract new people to the art form, certainly isn't going to attract new people to your organization, and is going to have an undesirable effect on the outcome because it's going to be stilted and it's not going to be as creative as it might be if followers are allowed to have a real stake in the process and know that their needs as practitioners are going to be met. But it still has some shortcomings. The authoritative leadership model surely has shortcomings. We've come to agreement on that. The servant leadership model is well intended, but it has some shortcomings too. If the model is exclusively rooted in what the followers want and what the followers need, there appear to be some gaps in what kind of leadership is provided and what potential there is. The third model, and the model that we've modeled this course on, I've termed enlightened leadership. There are many schools of thought that refer to it as transformational leadership. But enlightened leadership goes one little step further. It takes the servant leader model and really puts more onus or more responsibility on the leader, him or herself, to understand what he or she needs to do in order to be much more effective than even the servant leadership model can give them the guidance to do or to be. The enlightened leadership model is rooted in a vision. In the servant leadership model, there's very little discussion in the texts or in application of an overarching vision that the leader has in order to be able to present to the followers, here's where we're going. Now, yes, this vision is evolved directly from the desires of and the ability to see the global outcome on the part of the leader. It doesn't necessarily require a follower's assent to develop it, but it does require a follower's assent to execute it. So the vision is critical in transformational or enlightened leadership. It's the responsibility of the leader to have and communicate a clear, articulate vision of what he or she believes his organization has as a mission and what it can do to better society. The second element of enlightened leadership is flexibility and adaptability and a willingness to learn. Now that's on the part of the leader. I'm having my flexibility adaptability coffee this morning as I make this video. Excuse me. The flexibility and adaptability and willingness to learn on the part of the leader is critical in the enlightened leadership model. The third element of the enlightened leadership model is the enrollment and empowerment of the stakeholders. The stakeholders being employees in a company, members of your chorus, members of your orchestra, members of your dance ensemble, members of your classroom if you're in academics. Those universes require that in the enlightened leadership model that there become an enrollment and empowerment of the people to help the leader move toward the vision. The fourth element is clear communications. Clear communications isn't even talked about in the servant leadership model. There's a nice one-on-one opportunity. There's a certain deftness in communication in the servant leadership model, but it's really important in the enlightened leadership model because the clarification of and communication of that vision in all circumstances is critical to the ongoing success of the servant leader. The fifth and final element of servant leadership is the self-care of the leader, him or herself. Now, these are standard principles for enlightened leadership during what we'll call normal times. But now is not a normal time. The very fact that I'm speaking to you via the technology of the marvelous interwebs means that we're not able to be together due to the pandemic. The crisis in which we find ourselves makes it even more important that you as a leader or you as a prospective leader understand the principles of enlightened leadership during challenging times in order to be able to not only survive them, but to use them to prosper and to move forward into whatever new normal may come. So let's identify during challenging times what's particularly germane to enlightened leadership using those 5 criteria of enlightened leadership that I mentioned. So the vision that's required of an enlightened leader, well, this is this is definitely the most important thing for the enlightened leader during a challenging times. The vision right now is totally different than it may have been 3 months ago. The vision for what can happen next still is rooted in making music, making dance, making art, making products if you're in manufacturing, providing services if you're in some other industry. But the vision has morphed. The vision during a challenging time like this is definitely requires a certain level of expansion of your vision to be able to see what's possible, not what can't be done, but what's possible. So that vision is critical. Um, in my case, in the course of dealing with my wonderful Alexandria singers, with my church music engagement, it's it's all different. It's all different. But I still see not only today what needs to change, but I see what can happen in the future that may actually benefit from this changing and challenging time. So the vision of the enlightened leader needs to be expanded. The leader needs to sit back and not look at what can't happen, but what can happen, what should happen, especially should happen given the conditions: safety, lack of transportation capability, lack of mobility. All those things need to come into play in this vision. It needs to be realistic, but it needs to be optimistic. Realistic and optimistic are the keys for the new vision for the enlightened leader during a challenging time. So, what does the leader need next? In any environment, the enlightened leader needs flexibility and adaptability and a willingness to learn. Well, here again, these circumstances have made flexibility and adaptability, and boy, in my case, and I think in yours, and a willingness to learn. There's so many new things that I've had to learn over the course of the last 90 days, things associated with technology, things associated with the research that goes into the science of the conditions in which we're under. What's really going on? How many cases of this virus are there in our area that's impacting us? How is that news regularly changing? What are organizations providing me in terms of data about the spread of the virus due to singing that's going to directly impact my singers today and into the future, near, mid, and long-term future when we get back together again? So we need to learn about the conditions. We need to learn about the methods we use to lead. The very fact that I'm speaking to you today via technology is producing a number of videos that I've been able to produce to not only provide my singers with an overall learning experience, but even more one-on-one learning. Voice teachers have begun to use Skype and Zoom and GoToMeeting, a variety of technology tools to work one-on-one with their with their students, or with their singers. Yes, there are some limitations to the technology. We know that singing together as an ensemble on a Zoom call is a chaotic exercise because of the latency of the internet doesn't allow for true synchronization so that everyone can really sing together. Nevertheless, there's a need on the part of your on the part of your singers, on the part of your followers, to be able to also learn and adapt and be flexible. And if the leader and the followers are all are willing to be together in different ways, wonderful results can happen. So flexibility, adaptability, and a willingness to learn during challenging times. Oh my gosh, how incredibly important are they to an enlightened leader? The third element that's always been important for an enlightened leader is enrollment or empowerment of your followers. This is particularly useful during these challenging times. Some people are extra stressed with uh, whatever occupation they have that may be ongoing but they need to do from home. And conceivably, they're parents of children who have been home from school, so they have their work, their children to watch during the day and help teach, take care of while they're doing their work, and then the regular home relationships that normally are nurtured, let alone the what we'll call extracurricular things like singing or dancing or playing an instrument in an ensemble. Those are all really, really hard to piece together. So the enlightened leader during a challenging time needs to enroll and empower his or her people to understand their role is as important as the leader's role in moving this ball forward. It's really, really hard. But if there's value provided as um, music provides, as a therapeutic connection, as a therapeutic benefit, as a connection benefit, the ability to be part of a larger whole and know that other people are getting through this just as easily as they can, as best they can, provides the follower with a sense of confidence and belonging and connection. That's enrolling them to be part of your vision. Let's stick together through this and let's make it through with the flexibility and the adaptability of the second tenet, making sure that they understand that good will come out of this. Empowerment actually is really helpful to me. I put on some projects now or embarked on some projects that really are going to require a lot more work than working through the normal stages of leadership. Things like online Zoom conference calls or rehearsals or gatherings need to have not just Bill yapping at somebody for an hour and a half, but need to have guests come in and be clinicians and have our members participate in an active way in helping move the ball forward. We're in a project, for example, to produce a lovely virtual choir presentation of one of our repertoire pieces. And right now, singers are creating their video selfies of the song, submitting them, and a producer is helping us put together a lovely presentation to post on social media. Many organizations are doing this. Well, I realized that with nearly 90 singers who are interested in participating and have committed to do it, it would be insane for me to put in the instructions, call Bill if you have a problem. So I surveyed my singers and asked who would be willing to help others through this technological challenge that they may face if they are uncomfortable with something or aren't able to produce their video or are having real difficulty. Who's willing to help? 40 of the 90 singers stepped up in a survey and said, I am willing to help. Here's my contact information. And so a list of helpers were provided to our singers. Those singers who are helpers now are empowered by the leader to work in concert with me with the vision and the flexibility and adaptability to make sure that everybody's comfortable in putting out the product that they need to put out. That's just one small example of applying enlightened leadership in the area of not only enrolling your followers to be part of the project, but empowering your followers to help each other. That takes a little load off of you as the leader, but it also gives a real feeling of satisfaction, a heightened investment in the product, an investment in the organization that's extremely helpful. The fourth tenet during challenging times of enlightened leadership is communications. Oh my goodness. Now, one can over communicate via email and people will go, oh, him again. But if you use it in a simple way, in an effective way, and make sure that you're as detailed as possible in what you need your singers or your people to do, they will follow. Also, the use of social media, which people are more and more connected with, especially during challenging times. They have a little bit more time on their hands to check Facebook or to go to Twitter. You're able to actually communicate in little snippets, things that uplift the singers, also instruct the singers, or provide them with entertainment of other groups that they might want to see that they don't even know are out there, that provide some encouragement, provide some learning opportunity, um, putting up beautiful videos of other groups' a cappella performances, whether they're barbershop or not, may be something that's of interest to your singers and encourages them and lets them know that this will pass. And when it passes, there's a whole lot on the horizon that we can do together. So communication is absolutely critical. And enrolling others in helping with that communication process, again, takes the load off the leader so that there are members of your organization who become the social connection people, um, even more than the leader needs to be. While the leader is the musical leader, for example, there are some of the admin folks in the organization or what may be called your chapter who may be the social maven who posts uh, information, hosts gatherings to communicate, to connect. A lot of what we're finding now, certainly during this 90-day challenging time so far, is that is the waning of the social connectedness. And that connectedness is so critical to the success of an enlightened leader in order to be able to have the follower and leader in constant sync. We have a need to be together. So if that togetherness is virtual, let's make it virtual for now. And also consider the prospects of one-on-one contact. There's nothing like, yeah, text messages are okay and Facebook messages are okay, but a phone call is still a phone call. A FaceTime is still a FaceTime, and it means a lot more to see and hear the voices of those people that you care about. So the members themselves are calling each other. The leader is reaching out periodically and contacting members who may not be participating in the Zoom rehearsals or the meetings online. Or your data may tell you that that person isn't learning the music that you still have out there for them to be working on independently. Communication can also take the form of product or services. I've been providing a special program of personal vocal instruction for my singers at no cost to them. It comes in a very simple way. They can submit an audio file of singing, and I can give them some feedback by email or by a simple voice message. Or it can be expanded even more into 30-minute lessons at either no cost or a very low cost. I happen to be able to do that based on the experience that I have, and a number of my singers have appreciated the opportunity to take the time to learn themselves. But that requires communication of the opportunity to your members. Finally, and I'm sure you're glad to hear the word finally, the enlightened leader during challenging times needs to take care of himself. The man or woman in a leadership position right now during this challenging time is just as human as the followers are. He or she needs to be careful to make sure that they are healthy, that they are safe, that they are practicing the new regimen that is required in a time of pandemic. They're also needing to rest and take care of their nutrition, take care of their social needs, their need for connectedness, the leader's need for love. Um, if the leader feels stressed, if the leader isn't coping well with the environment, that will port over to his or her leadership ability, his or her leadership style, and ultimately what the singers on the receiving end feel. Our singers our instrumentalists, our artists, those whom we lead as leaders, especially those who might attend Harmony College East, who might be part of your chorus, your quartet, our singers, our people, they know more than we give them credit for. They can intuit our deepest desires. They can tell when we're well, they can tell when we're not so well. Our actions give them a lot of cues, whether we're abrupt, whether we're not our normal chipper selves, as my mother used to say, or whether we are not as considerate of them as we might be. If they know, in effect, that we are usually more considerate or happier appearing, or our physicality is not where it usually is, they will sense a disruption in their ecosystem. They will sense that the leader isn't as on board or isn't as adept given the circumstances. And if they get a sense that the leader is struggling, they may not feel as comfortable being enrolled. They may not feel as comfortable in their role as an empowered member of the group. So just to recap, I haven't given you any handouts, but that's not possible through the world here. An enlightened leader during a challenging time starts with a vision. That vision needs to be clear in the leader's mind, and it needs to be adaptable during challenging times. Hence, flexibility and adaptability and a willingness to learn are critical for an enlightened leader, especially during challenging times. The enrollment and empowerment of the follower needs to be magnified 10 times during challenging times. Communications during challenging times are so critical, and those are very, very important for an enlightened leader's success. And finally, care of the leader, self-care of the leader. Outcomes, if enlightened leadership is applied, are nothing but good. Yeah, there'll be stumbles, there'll be do-overs, there'll be times when you say, what we tried didn't work. We'll have to change it. Get on board. We're changing it. Come on. That will increase the knowledge level of your singers. It will increase the informed, what I call informed optimism, not just pie in the sky, oh, it's going to be better. They will see how it's going to be better. And they'll have a greater degree of faith in you as a leader and a greater degree of faith in their organization and in their capability of succeeding. And we may find, and I firmly believe this, we may find that this 90 days or more of challenging times, specifically associated with this pandemic, may be a really good thing for us because we will have seen what can be that we've never seen before, never even imagined before in 2019 or even in early 2020. And that change, that difference, will inform us of how to be an even more effective, enlightened leader in the future. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being willing to participate in our wonderful Harmony College East, which I know Glenn and Cheryl are already beginning to work on for 2021. I look forward to being with you then, and you can always reach out to me by email or by phone and get in touch with me and let me know if I can help you become a better enlightened leader. Have a great day and take care of yourself.